For those who may not know too much about the SDP, could you give us a quick overview of what you believe in and why voters should be interested?
I will, yeah, but before I do it, I should give you a really quick history as well.
Okay.
It's actually quite an old party. It's not a new thing. I mean, a lot of people, it's new to young people, I guess. But it started in 81, and it's a breakaway from the Labour Party. And it was very, very big in the 80s. I mean, millions of votes, and had a big alliance with the Liberals. And but it didn't break the mould. They wanted to change the voting system and change politics for good. But they didn't do it. And then the party was kicked. It was the independence of the party was maintained by David Owen, one of my political heroes, former leader. And then when he left, it was just knocked to the sort of grassroots. And it was, I always say it's a bit like a bird species, sort of had national coverage, and then you got little pockets, and it survived. And then about 8 years ago, we sort of started reviving it, and that's where we are now. But so the modern SDP is, again, very brief description. It's a sort of mix of red and blue. So we've, on economics and what the state does, we're pretty red, I guess. Want the state to build some houses, run the railways, run the water companies, and generate some power. We think that's very sensible, prerequisite really. But on the sort of social side, the social dimension, we're very pro-market, and the rest of the normal goods and services should be run by normal, private enterprise. And on things like the family, we're very pro-family. We are nationalistic, I think. We believe in the nation-state democracy. We supported Brexit, which is a big dividing line. So you have this mix of red and blue. And actually, on the data, the experts tell us about half the British people have that broad position, sort of culturally traditional and a little bit lefty on what the state does.
So, yeah, and given that, why do you think the SDP, in its current incarnation, has sort of maybe failed to fully cut through to the public imagination in the way that you did it in the past with the high watermark in the 80s?
Yeah, all my fault, I guess. It's very difficult. In the 80s, they started at the top. So the historians, Crewe and King, would say that, they went up like a rocket and came down like the stick. So you had, four very, very senior politicians. You had Roy Jenkins, former Home Secretary, former Chancellor, Owen, former Foreign Secretary, Shirley Williams, one of the most popular politicians in the country. And so they had massive, massive profile. So within a month of setting up, they were polling in the 30s and 40s. In fact, there's a poll that Gallup did in 82 of the party polling 52%. So the equivalent cut through that they got from that start was literally tens of millions of advertising revenue effectively. Now we rebuilding the party from scratch almost, because we had 70 or 80 members. It went down to, we had an electoral commission registration, but not much else. It's much harder to do that. It usually takes longer. And in British political history, insurgent parties usually can take 20 years. Labour did, post-war Liberals did, UKIP did, and the Ecology Party, which is now the Green Party, did as well. So the big question for us, and it's a very serious question, Nick, is the SDP on track? Are we going to make it? It's a very, very serious question. I don't know. I think we will, because I think the demand side is there, and I think our policy offer is very serious and very good. And we'll do our best to. But I would say we're about on track. In 2017 we had 6 parliamentary candidates in general election. Then we had 20 in 2019. We had 122 last time, and obviously we've got to double or triple that. See how we go.
Yeah, and why do you think then, given that your offer is, I think you've said in the past, it's about 55% of the country agree with your essential position, and I'm surprised it's not even higher. Given that the British public seems to be generally socially conservative, but somewhat economically to the left, so we're a bit wary of immigration and things like that, but we tend to want rail nationalised, probably water at this point, definitely, and a few other things like that, and the NHS. Given that essential formula, why has that so rarely been offered by the mainstream parties? I think perhaps occasionally it has been by maybe Nick Timothy attempted to do it with Theresa May, perhaps, and now I think of Blue Labour, which is a small faction within Labour, with Laura Glasman. So these are fairly minor things. Why has that essential formula not been offered more to voters?
Well, you're quite right. I mean, you're quite right in identifying the 3 groups, because actually they are our political kin in different parties. And I know Morris and obviously Blue Labour is very close to what we're doing. There are some differences, but largely sort of academic and philosophical, actually. Not huge differences. And again, the red Tory thing is quite close. Now, in fact, I was speaking at a fringe meeting at the Tory conference recently, and bumped into Nick Timothy, and I can't see huge differences between me and him, to be honest. But they are trying. I mean, I think we've got to do what we're doing. The only way you can actually put this program forward to voters actually voting is be a real political party and try and get votes, which is the currency of political parties. What they're trying to do is influence very, very large parties. And that, I've said it before, and anyone that's listened to me will hear me repeat this. But say something like Blue Labour is quite a small, but it's a great faction, but it's a small faction. And in the Labour Party conference, I would say half of the delegates hate them. Yeah, I mean, they just don't see eye to eye at all with them. And occasionally Morris will get the ear of, Miliband, whoever's leading the Labour. But then they'll revert back to their usual progressive liberalism, and it'll fall apart. And the analogy, the metaphor I use is they're in this great big bus, the driver's driving somewhere they don't want to go, and Morris is at the back, and everyone else in the bus hates them. That's what it's like to be Blue Labour. I think it's very tough.
He even called out Starmer recently, Clouston, when Starmer called Farage racist, or his policy racist.
Yeah.
And he even called him out. So it's very much, this front bench is very much not aligned, as you say.
No. And again, Morris has got to say this because, it's an intellectual project, Blue Labour, actually, but really, because Morris is a great intellectual, and I think he's done a lot of the thinking, and he's right about all his. I always say if you had a machine, a correctometer, I can't call it a rightometer, it's not left, right, but are you correct about things? Morris's correctometer would be very, very high. Paul Embry's very, very high, and I agree with him. Nick Timothy's likely to be very. I think we get a lot of stuff right, but we're the only game in town to offer it to the public to vote on. And 120 candidates, 122 candidates last time. I would want more, but we've got to build it. If you're ever going to give people a chance to vote for something decent like this, you've actually got to build it, I think.
So I'm not brilliant on the mechanics of how politics works at the grassroots level. Is your strategy really to get councillors and just start small and build up? Yeah,
I think you've got to sort of joking by fear, apart from anything else, you've got to win elections. And if you're small, you've got to concentrate. So you've got a few thousand members. You haven't got hundreds of thousands. You've got, we'd like a big donor would help us, but we have some money, but we're not made of money. So you've got to concentrate. And a few years ago, I said, well, okay, find the best candidate in the country. It happened to be Wayne Dixon in Leeds. And then I thought, oh no, because these big city council seats, to get a seat in a big city council like Manchester or Leeds, you're talking about 35,000 people live in these divisions. They're huge. It's not like winning a little district council seat with 2,000 members and getting, you've got to get thousands of votes, and you've got to kick the Labour Party out of somewhere that they've never ever not controlled.
Right.
But we did it.
Right.
It wasn't overnight. It took. I think it was the fourth attempt.
Well, it's a great opportunity to do that now. I mean, Labour's about to collapse in Wales, which they've controlled for 100 years or something. So it's a great chance to do that if ever there was one.
You've got to have the networks and you've got the resources. But the Greens had Brighton. We've got South Leeds. We're not finished. We're not done with it. It'll be very difficult because Reform are now coming in and getting 20% of the vote without doing any work at all. Fine, but they so it will be tough. But we'll continue, and I think we'll succeed. I think we'll get more and more seats. More and more. We've got 3. We hope to get it up to 4 or 5 next time.